morning, everyone, and welcome. This is kind of a monumental step here. It's our 100th episode of the Veritas fact-finding mission, and today I'm joined by my very good friend, Joe Mauko. Good morning, Joe.
Hey, good morning, Anthony. Great to be here.
So, surfacing facts and revealing truths is a never-ending quest for us at Veritas. In each episode of our fact-finding series, we go on the ground to speak to industry professionals in an unscripted, candid, live video format to discover how we can make better investment decisions. In this series, and in everything we do, we believe that facts empower investors and that better information leads to better investment decisions. By way of background, my name is Anthony Scilipoti, and I'm the president and CEO of Veritas, which is an independent equity research firm based in Toronto, Canada. And I'm proud to say we celebrated 22 years being 100% employee-owned and operated. Quick disclaimer here, this broadcast is not to be taken as investment advice, and participants or employees of Veritas Group of Companies may own securities discussed in this broadcast. And while we love all our guests, and Joe in particular, this session may contain forward-looking statements, investment opinions, and comments that we may not agree with at all. Now, I started off in my prepared remarks that we always think of this as getting investment advice. But I think making good investments is about having good judgment. And in order to have good judgment, you have to have a right frame of mind. In order to have a right frame of mind, you have to have something inside that drives you. And now I'm going to just give a bit of prelude because Joe and I have known each other since high school. We met what is now about 37 years ago when we were kids. And we were there, we were in the halls of St. Mike's, and Joe kind of was a late bloomer. He grew later, and today he stands, although he doesn't show it right now, he's about 6'4", 6'5", and he was qualifying for Olympics as a pole vaulter when he because that's where he went and went to university and did that. But I'll let him talk about that. So he went from Olympic qualifying, NCAA competitor in pole vaulting, to someone who was virtually on his deathbed from cancer and a number of other situations that he'll discuss better. And then he overcame that and to become an ultra marathoner and someone who's driven to make other people's lives better. And he does that perfectly by example. Joe's not a guy who's going to take full page ads out about what he does. He's going to probably, after I say what I'm going to say now, he's going to try to downplay everything that I'm discussing. But he's going to give a prepared presentation today, which is talking about when things don't go right. What do you do? And just think of this: when we're investing, every day is not exactly going to be a perfect outcome. But yet, how do we do it? The next day, how do we make it better? Joe, tell us a little bit about what brought you here today and what drives you.
I mean, I'm here in a spirit of service. This is not a paid speaking event. To be honest, this is really outside of my comfort zone. What this is not is a presentation of that I ran some stupid big race that you'll never do. And if there's any investment advice, this will be like in the spirit of investing in yourself, to your family, to your community. And it's going to be a story about me and how the transformation that led from one thing to another. It started with running, and I added more things to, really 4 chess moves. My dad was a great chess player, and I could never beat him. He was a chess master, but there were always 4 moves that he did, or 3 or 4 moves. Does it win the game? No, but it sets you up for success. And I'll share with you those 4 moves that I do every day that helps me dial in my day, because I still have to perform at work. I got 2 kids, I'm married, I got to pay bills, and I got to perform. My family is counting on me. My church is counting on me. The charities I support, the boards I sit on, the company I represent, and so on and so forth.
And Joe sits on our foundation board. He's one of the founding board members of that. So thanks for your support of that. Joe, I'll turn it over to you. Why don't you walk us through your presentation?
Yeah, okay. Let me share screen. Okay, so as you know, so My name is Joe Mauko. I'm, an extreme endurance athlete, but also on the flip side, professionally, I'm a cybersecurity professional. I work in sales. I work in the technology sector. I made a career change actually at the age 40. I went from being a professional photographer of all things, having no formal education in computer science, stuff like that. I'm completely self-taught. I pride myself on that. But yeah, I made this career change at the age 40. I've been married for 17, going on 18 years. We've got two beautiful children that are absolutely changing, um, changing the world with some of their with their the two kids that have businesses as well. But we look at I am sharing, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So, we look at markets this way, and we hope that our lives might trend in the same direction on upward path. But what do you do when things just don't seem to be going right? Like in my life, it was kind of like this endless loop of chronic failure. This is circa 2008, 9, and 10. I mean, my life was like Groundhog Day, and it was just consumed. My mornings were consumed being woken not by the alarm clock, but sweats and fear and this inner critic that led to, that inner voice inside my head, that this dialogue that I felt like a loser. I failed on so many things. I'll get to that in a minute. But uh, you know, it was just this paralysis that set in, 2008, 9, and 10. And for me, what I will share with you is really a personal transformation stories that really begins around 2010, when I was 250 pounds and also in the emergency room with chest pain that resulted, really the trigger point to overhauling my life. I'll share a little bit about my background. Yeah, there were these Olympic pursuits, being an NCAA athlete, but also massive failure. So, there isn't any investment advice that you could get from me. But I did have the good fortune of being mentored by some just phenomenal people, and I'll share with you how it started with running, and through their loving support and encouragement that it evolved to something much more. And so we'll talk about some other habits that I started to dial in. And ultimately, I mean, the unintended consequence is that, yeah, it changed my life. It changed my marriage. It changed how my wife looked at me. It changed how my kids looked at me. It changed how the marketplace viewed Joe as he was going into a new career, from, a professional photographer to the cybersecurity field that's very technical. So let's talk about goals. I'm very goal oriented, but two things. So it's my hope that, my loving hope that through this story that I'll give you a perspective that that might help you live your bravest ambition, that you might live your bravest version of yourself. And secondly, my point is that we're going to talk about running, but there's more to the story than just running. There's more to life than just these crazy endeavors. This is a race. I ran 100 miles. I got lost for 4 hours. So you imagine I ran 29 hours. We'll talk about that. Most of this stuff isn't sustainable. I mean, just think about it. I'm 51. I mean, how many more years of this stuff do I have in me? Not much, right? So there's more to the story than just running, and I'll share with you those 4 chess moves. If you have, these little faithful deposits that I make every day to dial in my morning routine to keep me sharp, right, and performing at my best. But I think that there's something here for everyone. We said there's 30, 40 people here. I mean, I work in sales, so much like in a deck of cards, I believe in the law of averages. There's always a joker who might think that this might be a waste of time. There might be some people who are acing life, but perhaps your takeaway is that you can carry the torch and help someone else, mentor someone, right? Take some of this tactical stuff, take this, the frameworks that I'll share with you, and maybe mentor someone else. But like myself back in 2008, there might be somebody here who is in desperation, so where change and fear and, you might be masking things as I did with alcohol and eating and anxiety and sleepless nights. And I was begging for someone to walk into my life. But my story really takes you back to, I'll take you back to 2014 when I'm sitting across from Coach Ron Mann, who is the U.S. Olympic coach and my coach during my NCAA AA Division I scholarship, days in Arizona. He's one of my mentors. He's the one who brought the Kenyans to world domination in the field of marathoning. Okay, he coached the first Kenyan to win the Boston Marathon in 1988, to win it 2 consecutive times after that in 1990 and 1991. This guy's got his fruit on the tree. So when I sat with him to talk about strategy on preparing for a run across the desert, and we were sitting down and building this run strategy and looking at, best case, worst case, because by this point going into the desert race, the Atacama Desert, which was 250 kilometers, the race organizers had me as a favorite to win.
Wow.
And yeah, well, it was far from the truth. And but as a strategy, when things don't seem to be going right, what do? Priority number one is, here we go, is stop trying to hit a home run and just get on base. So as a win strategy, Coach Mann said, stop swinging for the fences. The reality is, Joe, you just lost 70 pounds. There's no way you have a shot at beating a guy who's been training in the marathon for the last 15 years. And so, it kind of put things in perspective and said, you got to take a base hit when you can. And you got to celebrate success at each milestone. And success is success any way you slice it. And as a strategy going into the race, he said, Joe, your goal is not to win the race. Let's be real. It's a staged race where you're running a marathon a day for 4 days. On day 5, you're going to run 2 marathons. And your goal is to finish each day. Your goal is to finish the race. Why? Because your family's counting on it. Why? Because your charity is counting on you on that money that you're fundraising for, right? The goal was to finish. And so, I love his philosophy, and I love Coach Mann with all my heart, because he helped frame things in a different perspective, of a different mindset and a different way of looking at things. So I realized that big gains in my life, I had to stop looking at the finish line and start looking at success and stop looking at big achievement. And when I optimized my morning and my morning routine around this first habit of health, things started to change for me. So I'll take you, forgive me. I'll take you back. This is just a bit of a history, some things that I've done. Over here in the top left, this is me on a treadmill. So in 2014, 2015, and 2016, we put a treadmill on a street corner and I ran for 24 hours. My first attempt at it, I logged 169 kilometers. This was me in 2016 with some politician that was looking for a photo with me. I did it again, for 3 years in a row. Every year, I run from Toronto to Hamilton to the start of the Around the Bay Marathon race. I'll be doing this again next year in 2023 with my son. And, these are cool things, right?
No, but running to Hamilton, to make it clear, from your house is about a marathon in distance.
More.
Pardon?
It's more. It's about 2 marathons.
And so then you're going to run the 30K around.
I run overnight with no sleep. And then when I arrive at the start line, the gun goes off and I run it's not a true marathon, it's only 30K, but I run the 30K distance as well. And over here, this was my first attempt at running 100 miles. And that's the photo finish right over here. I got lost for 4 hours. So if you Google my name and Halliburton, there's a bit of a story there of how I took a wrong turn down a abandoned logging road for 4 hours, and then at roughly 22 hours into the race, I realized, as the rain was falling and it rejuvenated me, I realized I was lost, and I went back the way I came, and then finished the race at 29 hours. But look, I mean, these are great. You know, this is a good story around, you know, around a dinner table, stuff like that. But when things aren't going right, my message here is, you know, you start writing your own headlines. Think about how the world would like to view you. You know, the curious thing here is I wrote these headlines myself. I started to I started looking at the marketplace and thinking how I wanted the world to view me as I went into the next decade, from 2010 to 2020. And I wrote these headlines for the newspapers, and they just added some more content to the story. But so, you know, why do I run? You know, interesting story is that, you know, I run because the more I run, the more I sell. You know, I run because, you know, when I'm at my, you know, at my fittest, at my optimal health, I perform my best, and I'm energized, and I can, you know, focus on the impact that I want to make, the money I wish to raise for my charities, and now, as I mentioned before, my kids look up to me. In 2014, I was preparing for again, as I mentioned, that first meeting, that strategy meeting with Coach Ron Mann, the U.S. Olympic coach. This is everything that goes into a race. You know, 5 pairs of shoes, extra gloves, mitts, extra gear, rain gear. You got to think of hydration, protein, food, all kinds of things. And a lot of preparation goes into a race like this. So, you know, when things do not go right, you got to get prepared, and you got to prepare for the worst case scenario. This isn't my foot right here, but at the Atacama race, somebody took a photo of the actual skin that came off their heel. And my feet were taped with extra tape and tape on top of tape. And we were using medical grade glue to glue skin back onto my feet. My feet were like hamburger meat. Like running across a desert, 250K. I mean, people have done more than that. We could talk about that some other time. But you have to get prepared for a race like this. You cannot go in and think, I'm not going to get a blister, that you're not going to feel pain. You know, I think of next year in the financial, like what's going to happen in the financial markets. I mean, interest rates going up. I'm already taking a hit on my rental property, on my personal mortgage. You know, so, you know, I train on tired legs. This is me finishing the Around the Bay race. Look at the time up there. I finished in 3 hours. I kicked ass. So that was me running to Hamilton and then finishing the Around the Bay race at 3 hours 40. I beat people in the race, but nobody had a clue that I ran from Toronto. I train on tired legs. I train in the heat. I train in the cold. I do it all. I train in the mornings with no sleep sometimes. You know, as I lead up into a race, my son, who's trying to follow my footsteps, is prepping now for some sleep deprivation running, where we go out at midnight and we come back for breakfast, and then try to be productive the entire day, right? Because why? My wife is counting on me. You know, I got to still be present for my family. But it's all that stuff, and all that preparation is important. You know, what do you do when things aren't going right? You're prepared. You know, we have the benefit right now. I'm looking at 2023. I'm prepared for next year. I'm already preparing with my family, my kids. We're preparing the next year is going to be our best year ever. That's our mantra. In fact, I got something written right there. We're, you know, 3 words: grow, protect, and multiply. And that's our mantra going into 2023.
You know, who you are, the things you do today, my mentor said to me, says, is going to impact your success next year. This is not advice to you. I'm talking to myself, by the way. And yeah, so let's move on. So, you know, the message here is, you know, so yeah, this running and track and field history, you know, it was, this is back in high school and through my university days, and I broke records. But my point is that you know, in a competitive field in cybersecurity, where I don't have a degree, a master's degree in computer science. I have no formal education in or a computer degree in this field. So you know, I kind of redefine myself as this consummate athlete, you know, as a metaphor, as the guy that's always in training. And some of the people that I mentor, and one guy right now who's actually in an interview process, who has the degree, you know, we're talking about how to tell your story, you know, in a job interview, because your story is unique to who you are. And my story that's unique to me is Joe is the athlete. I got lost in the middle, right? There was this where I kind of drifted, and you know, I gained weight, and I had this period of massive failure that I'll get into. But, you know, Joe has recovered. I'm back in top shape, and I'm the athlete that's always in training, always improving, on and off the track, in and out of the office. I'm the guy who breaks records, and I show evidence of this in my, you know, as I'm vying for that next position in the marketplace. So, you know, through these running pursuits, I realized that I could, you know, I could control the world and how it viewed me. And I changed my story and my position at work and my home and my community. And, you know, 30 years ago, I was a Division I scholarship athlete. I trained for the Olympics. I got hurt. But what followed was, you know, bills, right? Responsibilities, payments, and, you know, and like for many athletes, the adjustment from NCAA, um, qualifying for the Olympics, training and stuff like that, it was a bit of a balancing act. And I never quite, I had these dreams of regret, like I don't even know how to describe it, but you know, I just felt like this emptiness that I left a lot of stuff on the table. And it was a difficult transition for me to go from athlete to the workplace, because like, you know, like for many people, my dad gave me this talk as I was, you know, 17, 18, 19 years old, of success. You know, Joe, you need to get a good education, get a good job, work for 45, 50 years, and you die, right? But I thought there's got to be more to this. And I just, you know, look, it was a difficult adjustment for me, is my point. And like most people who, you know, who take their dreams to the grave, I felt like my dreams were starting to die inside as I started to grow older. Age 25, right? I think it was Benjamin Franklin who said most people die at 25 and just are buried at 75. There's a lot of wisdom at that. And that's what ended up happening for me, is as I started getting older, I started to shrink my dreams, right? I started living the narrative of what the world said was possible for me. And rather than increasing my dreams, you know, and increasing, you know, like a little child, I was losing control of that. And I started settling for that narrative of the world and try to fit inside a circle. And reality was I became cynical. I became a defeatist. It became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And rather than living that dream of possibilities and, you know, abundance and great optimism, I was shrinking my dreams. And ultimately, this, by the age 40, so going back to age 40, 2011, you know, I started to, like I said, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the reality is no one's too big to fail. I went from the top of my game, Olympic contender in 95, 96, to being broken spiritually and financially. And I just could not adjust to the reality of life and responsibilities. And like, as I said, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy. So April 7th, 2011, my birthday. Let's take inventory of what happened up until this point. Imagine the birthday candles came out. My wife came out with a birthday cake, and I was crying. A grown man crying. Forgive me. This is very hard for me. My wife comes to me and asks me, sorry.
It's okay, Joe. It's beautiful.
The kids are looking at me and asking me what's wrong. Up until this point, my kids don't know this yet, but I was married before. In 2002, I was divorced. So, a failed first marriage, hanging on to a second one. We were broken spiritually and financially. In 2003, my father passed away in my arms. From 2003 to 2008, I took over a business that was failing, recovered it a bit. We had some success, but it led to like getting a CRA notice in the mail. I had a lien on our house. Imagine I owed in the neighborhood of 6 figures to the government for unpaid taxes. I was just really, robbing Peter to pay Paul, to keep a business afloat, to pay my mom, because my dad left no savings behind, no insurance policy. It was shameful how he left no investment, nothing, his only legacy was, I don't want to minimize it to just his debt, but there was even no evidence that he lived a life. And I was looking back at my life, at the 40 candles on the cake, that if I just died today, that literally there was no evidence that a man had literally lived 40 years on this world. And that's the way I was looking at my life. In 2008, I had a lump on my neck, which then led to a surgery scheduled in 2009. In 2009, my wife was pregnant with our second child. And what happened was that after that, it was interesting. It was a Friday afternoon. I was thinking we're going to be celebrating. My wife is going off for an ultrasound to find out whether we got a boy or girl. And I got to go to a post-operative surgery meeting with the surgeon to find out if I have cancer or not. I'm thinking there can't be any cancer. There's no history of cancer in our family. We're going to celebrate. I left the wine breathing. I'm going to come home. I already started a couple of glasses. I'm waiting for my wife to come home. I said, babe, I got bad news. As she enters through the door on a Friday afternoon, I said to her, I got bad news. The lump on my neck, I got to have a second surgery. It's confirmed it's cancer. She comes home and she says, I got bad news. The baby, it's in the stomach that I'm carrying, is not alive. And then, of course, there's a procedure where they got to take that out. And so I had a second surgery later on in 2009 and try to juggle also my cancer treatment with trying to conceive a second child, because you can't be radioactive and try to, put another bun in the oven, right? And on top of that, balancing a whole new career, learning a whole new language in cybersecurity. Pardon the expression, there's a lot of shit going on, right? A lot of stuff. And it was almost like my life just kind of spiraled, and I started gaining weight. I started drinking. I was medicating with food and alcohol. I got up to 250 pounds. And that's the reality of things. In 2011, I thought to myself, well, when things aren't going right, the first thing that I did was this coming to Jesus moment. I cried in desperation. I prayed to God in front of the mirror, and I was looking for answers. And I was like, what do I do? And my wife said, and I remember like having this breakdown in front of the mirror, and she said, well, why don't you start running? I'm thinking, running? I hate running. It's stupid. Who likes to run? Like, I tried it. I hated it. The most I ever ran was like maybe 5K, and I couldn't even do that good. And but it kind of marinated for a month after my birthday. So around May of 2011, we went with $200 I didn't even have. We bought on credit at Yorkdale, you know, the Foot Locker store, right? The guy with the guys with these you know,
Referee shirts.
the referee shirts, yeah, telling me that I got to buy this shoe, I got to buy the moisture wicking shirt. I just wanted the $5 cotton t-shirts. Like, Joe, we don't do cotton anymore. That's old school. We do moisture wicking, you know? So they got me for like, you know, $200-300, and with a pair of shoes that maybe might have been a little too tight. And I went out jogging, and actually I couldn't even jog. It was a walk jog mix kind of interval training. I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. But you know what? I was committed to the process. I was thinking to myself, you know, God, just keep me committed, keep my heart in the right. I don't want the, you know, the lottery numbers. I just want clarity. That's all I was begging for. And like, I just wanted a bit of vision and clarity on where to go with life. And running became that anchor for me. And every day I went out felt like a little victory, a little vote for myself. And you know what was interesting was after 30 days, committed just to 1 hour, and it wasn't, I mean, it started to hurt. I could feel my belly and my, you know, everything shaking and moving. But, you know, after 30 days, it was like, wow, I just lost 10 pounds. I was never chasing the pounds. I was chasing clarity and the feeling and that win every day and hanging my hat on as if that was that success, you know, that what I was looking for every day. But, you know, the unintended consequence was I reset my goal, my commitment again, just being out there for the win, which was just an hour a day. And I lost 10 pounds every month for 7 months. And I lost 70 pounds in 7 months. So when things aren't going great, you know, I started to look at life, and I started, you know, I made this mind shift. I started taking my running and shifting from just trying to training. And I started adopting this training mindset. You know, nothing ever great was ever achieved from trying. And I didn't want to be one of those guys who tried something. Those are the quitters in life. Those are the people, they fail. They quit their gym memberships, right? We know them, right? I was one of those guys. They quit churches, they quit soccer practice, they quit on their kids, they quit on their marriage. Hello? And I didn't want to be one of those guys in life again. And, you know, if you've ever seen somebody in the gym, you've been to a gym, you see the guy who's in training, right? That training mindset. He's got this journal, right? He's keeping a log of his reps, of his exercises. He's working that muscle group, the hydration. He's got meals that are, you know, that he works on his diet. And so as I started training in 2012 for these ultra marathons, and then, you know, the 100 miles and Atacama Desert, that made a huge difference. I started to make big gains. And so as I was sitting with Coach Mann, and he said to me, and he says, Joe, so what are you going to do when you've run every desert, when you've run every race, when you've climbed every mountain? And he showed me a 3x5 index card, and he started to share with me some wisdom that there's more to life than just, you know, than these, you know, stupid running things, right? Let's be real. And so when things aren't going right, I started to examine my life and other areas of personal and professional growth. And so what does it mean to be all in on life, to be fully committed? Well, in my faith, and I've seen also in, you know, in Hinduism and other religions, that there's really 4 key areas, where, you know, what Robin Sharma affectionately calls as the 4 interior empires. You know, my first area, my first win every morning is health, right? It's the first thing that I dialed in, where I, you know, hang my hat on every morning. And it's the first discipline. And like that chess master, right? Does it win the game? It doesn't. I still got to show up at work and be charged and ready to go and produce, right? Production. I'm measured. My performance at work is just measured in dollars. Let's be real. Everything else, the meetings, those are indicators. My Rolodex, my calendar, what my calendar looks like, those are just all indicators of success. But at the end of the day, it's how many meetings converted to how many opportunities converted to deals closed. And I'm very blessed that this year I'm 135% above my number, and a contender for a trip to Hawaii next year. And but but the point is this, is that I started to deconstruct and reconstruct my mornings around these 4 areas with essentially a complete surrender. And like every great athlete, every great CEO, they know when to give it all, but also when you got to drop back into a recovery. There's a cycle of recovery and relaxation and meditation and reflection. And this is what I do. And you take how much of it you want for yourself. So I'll walk you through it. So, in terms of health, then it's mindset. Dr. George, who this was a man who's got 5 degrees in family psychology and family therapy. When he was my age, he retired. Let's be real. When his kids have never seen him work. I met this guy in 2014 as I just finished the Atacama, in preparation for the Atacama race. I met this guy at a funeral of all places. And he's got this dripping gold, dripping diamond encrusted, like a Jay-Z watch, a Rolex with diamonds all. I could see this guy had massive wealth, right? But also what I loved about him is the clarity. And as I got to know this man and he became my mentor, he says, Joe, if you want to quadruple your income, you got to double your investment in yourself. You got to become a reader. The reality is that most people have bigger TV screens than they do have bookshelves. And I started becoming a reader. And, how did I went from a $40,000 a year income in 2010 to 2016, my T4 breaking over 300,000. And I've never looked back since. To this day, we've got multiple properties. I've got a sailboat, but the point is it's like, it's that student, right? Always learning. When you know a guy like Anthony Scilipoti, the guy is a consummate student, right? Always reading, always perfecting his craft. And the same for me. It's like, how did I get to the top of my career? Is I just outlearned everybody. That's just it. I outlearned everybody in my field. And so, there's that 2x, 4x mindset, right? You gotta, if you want to quadruple your mindset, you got to double or actually quadruple your income. To quadruple, you got to double your investment in yourself, or even quadruple it in my case. But it was a daily dose of reading, and that I started adding that into my repertoire every morning, in addition to my runs. The next installment was a habit of this heart set. What does it mean? It meant like identifying some of those strongholds. Motivation doesn't last very long. Going to a seminar or even reading books. It's like I've been to some of the seminars. It's like, oh, you get so pumped up, rah, 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 rah. And it's like you come back home. It's like, now what? Now what? And the problem is that, some of those same strongholds had a hold on my life. And I realized I had some work to do on the inside and address some of that. To this day, as part of my heart set, I journal every day. And I heard journaling is like praying on paper. I address some of the things that I got to do and focus on during my day, both spiritually, mentally, physically. I set goals. I write an affirmation statement every day. I pray every day. I meditate on my prayers every day. And journaling is one way to address, for me, that, is address some of that inner work that I got to do, right? And last but not least is that clarity, giving thanks every day. You giving thanks for the blue jay that walked to my window, my windowsill. Looking at life as the cup, as kind of overflowing and giving back to someone, not in the spirit of philanthropy, but it maybe as a spirit of as a ministry to others, right? And what I started seeing is I started working on these areas in my life, not just running, but then becoming this consummate, working on my mindset, my heart set, and my soul set, as well as my health set. I saw exponential creativity and maximum output. I started outperforming my peers, going again from $40,000 a year to over 300,000. I learned everyone in my field. I started getting picked for jobs that others didn't. I got promotions. This year, I got 2 raises. I've been a keynote speaker at Bank of Montreal. I've been on radio. But I'll tell you, there's nothing more rewarding than the way my wife right now looks at me as being the man of this household. Yeah. So when things aren't going right, look, I started to systematize and prioritize my life. Systems are important. Why? They keep planes in the sky. And the championship teams are determined, the big championships are determined based on not talent necessarily. I mean, look at the Raptors 2019. Was that a bench full of talent? Most of them were misfits, right? We had Kawhi Leonard, right? And that gave hope, right? Breathed hope into the people. But you look at Spicy P, he couldn't do a fadeaway like you saw last night. There's no way. He was uncoordinated. But it was that belief in a system and that hope and a little bit of leadership on the front line and the hope from their leader, who is also, a rookie coach. Think about it. Talk about systems. But I started to systematize my life and my morning routines around these 4 areas. So look, when things aren't going right, I check my activity every morning against 4 areas. So the first things is there's 4 action areas. Every day I read, and I put a green box. Do I miss days? I do. I'm not perfect, but I reset my morning the next day. I check my attitude as I wake up in the morning on a scale of 1 to 10. There are some bad days here, right? But the goal was here is to measure myself and make sure that I'm not living in these big peaks and these big valleys, having these big swings and trying to be, more on an even keel. And every day I write a reflection. Every day it's a reflection in a gratitude journal that I check on, that I, as a moment of clarity, right? I log a great, grateful, love, learn, or blessed on a sheet of paper every day. But the point is that winning is a habit, but so is losing. So I was tired of that dark cloud, and I bought into that narrative. And I thought I had bad luck. I remember there were people that I worked with. They were like, "I'm staying away from you, Joe. There's this cloud that's over." And the crazy thing is, I believed that too, and it became that self-fulfilling prophecy. And I needed to change that, and I did. Look, it started with extreme ownership. And I realized that I was going to create my own destiny. And I've been blessed ever since. Why is this important? Because my kids are watching. And just as I want to live an abundant and adventurous and do some crazy things and hang my hat on that kind of stuff and live an impactful life, but I'm also thinking about succession in the next generation. And so what do you do when things aren't going right? You got to redefine success. It's time to smell the roses and reward yourself for something that might be seemingly small. At the dining room table, my message is the following. At the dining room table, we have this bell. I think it came from a sailboat. I got this many years ago as a gift, as I now got into sailing. But this sits in the middle of the dining room table, and the message is the following: is that this goes around the dining room table to both my kids, to my wife, and then back to me. And we ask ourselves one thing during this sacred family time, as we ring this bell. It's, give me one thing, don't give me an essay. I don't need like a full-on, sermon or an essay, but give me something great or grateful, someone you love or something you learned today, or something you feel blessed with. And if you can't find it in your heart to identify one of those 4 or 5 things, then you got to tell your best Chuck Norris joke. That's it. But, I get it. We have shitty days. So you got to just tell a joke, and perhaps that will inject a bit of levity into this sacred time. But this is something we've been doing for the last I forgot how many years, and it's just become a habit. And it's interesting how many other families now have adopted this as we share this. Sometimes we break bread with other families that come to join us at the table at our house. We share this with other families, and I invite you to install this as a habit to your family.
I like it.
But it's paid dividends. My kids are champions. But in the beginning days, like my daughter, who's a high achiever, high performer, she was the one that was just like, she would give you the full essay. Well, I did this today and I got an A on this and I did that and I outperformed on that and blah, blah, blah. And she's a straight A student, right? And she's like, okay, that's great. But then my son, who's kind of an introvert, it's like, man, I'm just shooting for that B on my English exam or my English test, But the point is, it's supposed to come from a genuine place, right, in your heart. And if you can't find something great, then find something that you're grateful for. Identify someone you love, something you learned, something you feel blessed for. It doesn't have to be big. Again, success is success, right? Stop looking at achievement as some big thing, because by the time the report card comes around, it's already too late, right? Let's move on. 1% principle. Anybody who's read the book Atomic Habits will know this. This should ring a bell. But little faithful deposits with your family, with your kids, banked over a long period of time leads to massive success. That's the point. My weight loss didn't happen overnight, but it looked like it was overnight. But those, and then some people just thought I was lucky. No, it was, most people didn't see the nights where I cried myself to sleep at night. I worked hard from 2011 to 2016 to earn that spot, for that job and that pay raise. And, it wasn't a lottery ticket. And, the good fortune today is that, like this stuff never stops, and I'm always in training. I'm blessed with a great marriage, but it takes effort every day. Same with our children. We still work on these things every day, but these little deposits over a long period of time will lead to massive results. I love this quote, the race isn't over, or race is over before you even start. So, when things aren't going right, I started to install a habit of early rise, waking up early. I started anticipating the clock in the morning, and I started to drop into this. If anybody who's there's a great book out there called Flow, but I started getting to this magical space of like increased pattern recognition and future prediction and this courage of a samurai, and started taking more risks, and things started to work out in my favor, right? And my message is simple, that, we're coming to the last 3 minutes here, in that, do something and commit to a process. Don't buy in the seduction that you got to hit a home run. Start small, be consistent, be strategic, take on a training mindset. If your thing for 2023 is you want to lose weight, start small, right? Dial in a habit of just being out there for 30 minutes, reading every day, adding a little bit more to your repertoire, praying to your maker, meditating, giving thanks every day. I promise you, this stuff will change your life. Key takeaways. Look, it starts with extreme ownership. There's a great example, Alcoholics Anonymous. The number one step is you got to admit you got a problem. That was my coming to Jesus moment, in front of the mirror, crying in desperation, and my wife seeing me crying. I got a problem, and I got to find help, right? And so I found some mentors and people who helped me steer me in the right direction. And the value of getting on base, that little faithful deposits, that faith always follows action. And the key to endurance is not so much is the little things that you do and the little reward that you give yourself every day. And yeah. And the last but not least, longevity. What's the secret to staying in the game? What's interesting, what's so fascinating as we wind things down here is that glue that binds you, that binds me. As I tell you this, as I present this to you, the first person that I'm teaching to or presenting to is me. I'm feeding Joe. In the 12-step process of the Alcoholics Anonymous, you could do the first 11 steps of the 12-step program, which is one of the most successful programs, recovery programs in the world. The most important step is you could do number 1 through 11, great, but the chance of success is less than 30%. It's number 12 that takes you over the top. It's teaching others. I come here in the spirit of sharing my story and hope that some of this might have of impact to you guys. Look, be a person of distinction. Never stop training. I love seeing Veritas out in the like on BNN. You look at a guy like I don't know if Nigel is on here, but I admire this man. I mean, I see years of experience and years of discipline and practice. I promise you, when you do something, you'll become a person of distinction, just like Anthony, just like the Nigels of the world. And in the same, kind of fashion, what I'm saying is, shoot for something great. The world will not ignore you. It will bless you, I promise you. And last but not least, my loving hope is that in living your greatest ambition, that you choose a life of adventure. Really, that's the last question that remains here: is what are you going to do for 2023 and beyond? And my hope is that you attack, this day, tomorrow, and next week as your last days, your last week, perhaps your last year. I know there's people already that have already left this world too early. And so as we go into 2023, we hope I hope that your lives become a life of great impact. So we've come to the end of the hour. I just wanted to thank you and thank you for this time. And if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to stick around.
I'll just launch our poll so that people can give us advice on next sessions and tell us what a great job you did. And if anybody has a question, if you just hover over the bottom of the screen over the Q&A, type in your question, and we'll make sure that Joe answers it. Joe, I've known you a long time, and that's quite a story. I've made myself quite a number of notes. I think even my dog, you can hear him moaning in the background, was quite impressed. My wife's listening to your session here right behind the screen, so she's been listening on her screen.
Yeah.
Anyway, when I think of you pulling that all together, what are your goals for 2023?
My goal is grow, protect, and multiply. Like, I've got some catching up to do. Like, I didn't start making money till 5-6 years ago, right? So, financially, like, the protect piece is invest, learn to invest wisely. Make sure we don't lose our shirts going into 2023. We have some real estate property, and we hope that we can also multiply. I've got some running things that I'm going to do still, on my bucket list. I bought a sailboat. One goal is more training now on the water to cross the Atlantic in a ocean going sailboat that I purchased.
Oh, really? That's the plan.
Yeah. I bought a 36-foot yacht that's fully self-sustaining. It's got the bathroom, the kitchen, the queen size bed, and all that stuff. So there's some preparation and training that I got to do if that's what you're asking for.
Yep.
But I mean, at the end of the day, it's just all about impact. Like, how many more of these can I do? How many more people can I lead? I have a life group that spans now around the world. The world is hurting. There's men reaching out to me crying.
Mhm.
There's people are hurting.
Yeah.
If I can just change one life, I'll be grateful. Like next year, and to lead leaders too, to lead others who want to lead others. So, and if
Okay.
anybody needs help from a health perspective, you know, I can help that, dial that in. I can't give you marriage advice.
Joe, that was tremendous. I know you've touched me and you've touched those people that were listening today. We'll have this on replay so they can go on to touch many more. Keep up
I
the
appreciate you.
in a life of ultimate. I love it.
Yeah, love you, Anthony. I respect you and care for you.
All the best, Joe.
Thank you so much. All the best, everyone. Ciao, ciao.
Thanks.